welcome to Provisionally Approved, the show where the producers, quote, go nuts as long as it doesn't get me in jail, unquote. I'm Mike Gorrie, and hashtag Gorrie fact, Gorries aren't actually human. They're just bunches of frightened cats held together with rope. Sitting with me today is...
my name's Grace Cunningham.
Justin Dalaya, that's right, I'm back again. You couldn't get rid of me.
As much as we did try, he just sort of keeps getting into the studio somehow, and it's a bit too awkward to get rid of him.
Yes, that's right. And I am the master of whatever it is we're talking about.
All right. So for those of the audience who've been with us before, Justin, you and I have been here plenty of times.
But we got a newbie today, someone who's the first time cast.
I sort of nagged Jack. It was like, you're a little kid and you see other kids playing with a toy, you kind of just want to go. I was like, please get me on that show. It looks kind of fun.
So this whole podcast is just a toy to you? It's just some kind of game?
We take this very seriously.
Now you're really twisting my words.
That's all right. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I guess in relation to RMITV, I finished high school last year. I did the Cert for Screen and Media Television Production in these studios this year, and that was lots of fun. And about halfway through the year, I joined RMITV. I started off just doing a few small things, like a few little videos for Rusu parties, or I stepped in for like one-off programs as production manager, which was interesting because I hadn't done something like that before. And I crewed on a couple of small little things, and then Offbeat was made, and I thought maybe I could be a daily producer for that, because I daily produce 1700, which is another Channel 31 program, and I thought, why not just do 2 shows? And I think I learn a lot. We're in our 11th out of the 12th week this week. So there's only 1 week left, and I think everyone's had lots of fun and learned a fair amount. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You sound very busy. Sounds like you always left, right and centre doing stuff, which is great.
Yeah, I guess you have to be.
So you've been involved with, you've got a fair bit of experience with like 1700 and you've done a few other sort of stuff at the C31 studio as well. You said before, was that?
Yeah. Well, apart from, because 1700 is based at the Channel 31 studios, but another experience that I did have there was hosting. Because before I got into TV, I really just wanted to host. So I did some crewing, and I just thought that's how I can kind of make my way in. But then they really needed daily producers. But I did do a little hosting stint on this one-off Channel 31 show called Giant Steps at the start of the year. And yeah, it was pretty fun. But to be honest, I don't think I'm a host. I think I'm definitely a behind-the-scenes kind of girl. Yeah.
Is that sort of like just where you just sort of feel more comfortable with behind-the-scenes stuff, or?
Yeah. I just find that. I don't know. I just prefer that position a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Get everything organised, make sure everything's on time and organised, and let's get straight into it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it's just more appealing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask, what's sort of the factor that sort of made your mind up on that, like?
I think hosts are extremely talented people, but I do think that you should follow your abilities with whatever path you choose. People say follow your passion, but I think you should also follow your ability. Like, that's very important. And I don't think I'm just a natural host. I've given it a shot, but I've just enjoyed this a lot better, like the producing side maybe, because it just comes a little bit more naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is actually something that I've been a conversation that I've been sort of having over and over with a few people over the last few weeks. But like when you say follow your ability, like a common misconception that a lot of people have is that like everyone just sort of has like sort of one sort of set of talents or whatever that like just sort of progress in a straight line, but it's sort of it ends up sort of being like you sort of start from a middle point, and then like you'll have sort of all these different sort of aptitudes that don't necessarily line up, but you end up just sort of growing outward toward like several of those things at once, and just sort of following like the next so for example, you might like a future you might sort of find that, you know, sort of getting back into hosting is sort of the next sort of ripest opportunity that's in front of you. Whereas it sort of seems like now, like for now, the behind the scenes stuff is what's working, which, you know, follow that.
Yeah, totally.
But like I'm saying that not necessarily just for your sake, but also for the audience's sake, because this is a thing that I keep encountering. And sorry, I just wanted to make that declaration to the world.
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially when you kind of visualize it like that, and perhaps that is the case.
I think a lot of people can get
with situations that suit or don't suit.
Yeah. I've discovered along the way, especially, you know, observing people like Tina Fey. She hosts 30 Rock. She's the host of 30 Rock. She was originally a writer for Saturday Night Live, so she's a writer for all these years, and then she was given a golden opportunity to go in front of camera, which is then she did a bit of everything really. She's dabbled, you know, she's done the directing, she's done the producing, she's done heavily the writing of 30 Rock, and then she's also the host. So it's a mixed baggage. So I think all these experiences along the way, and you'll find that your dream role one day randomly, bang, it's right there in front of your lap. You just got to grab it with both hands and let it run. So, you know, along the journey, like it's a step, it's like a big ladder. You got the big ladder to success, and you take a few steps, go, okay, the host is not for me right now. I'm climbing the ladder a bit more. Yep, I'm doing a lot of behind the scenes. And then you might take a big step and go, okay, I'm going to go directing. Oh, didn't quite work out. And then, I might try hosting again. And then bang, you might at the top of the ladder and you end up where you are. You might not end up there, but you've had the experience of doing it. And I think you find somewhere along the way where you fit in, I think.
Well,
I think part of that, part of that conception, like even just now, you've sort of described it as a ladder, which again is just like a single directional thing.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason that like we think of it in terms of like singular paths or ladders or in that sort of sense, rather than as like.
So you see it as a road with many maps.
I sort of think of it like in terms of like the roots of a tree or something like that, like sort of spread one way more at one stage, and then like, oh, hang on a tick, no, like it's a bit difficult to go that way without, you know, sort of coming around here and doing this stuff first. And
it's still like detours. You've got a million detour signs. You know, you drive on a highway, everything's going pretty fast, and oh crap, I've got to get off the freeway because now there's a major tree on the road, there's a detour. You go off now, you're going into the crazy hills. You know, there's times where you got to slow down, there's times we've had near misses. Then you're back on the highway, everything's going groovy. Then the next second you're off on another detour. But it's never dull or boring. You always got stuff to do. So I think that's my experience. I'm sure it's yours as well.
But I think part of the place that conception comes from is the fact that, like, you know, like a few generations ago, you know, you'd have. You'd get a job, you know, at the end of your teens or the start of your 20s or whatever, and you'd just sort of have the one career and sort of work your way up through that, like often, you know, working for the same company your whole life. Whereas nowadays, you know, we're constantly switching jobs, we're constantly switching careers.
I'm 27. I've already about 5 or 6 jobs, man. So
I think society is definitely a lot more open to people changing. I know I'm having older students in uni classes is very normal now. Or I know when my grandparents were younger, they had to make that change before they were at the age of 20 and then stick to it. You know, you couldn't be a banker till you were 30 and then want to be a pilot. But I think people nowadays could actually do that potentially.
Well, it's that thing of like we're now able to have, you know, sort of 4 or 5 or sometimes more different careers throughout our lives that. You know, that might last for 5 years, might last for a decade and a bit. Like, we don't know.
And you move on to the next thing that's open to you, or you might have a change of heart and decide, okay, I've done filming for 10 years. I've now had enough of that. I might be a motivational speaker. I might become a rock star. Well, maybe not that, but that's just my crazy head. But, you know, you might do 10 years as a banker and you go, okay, I'm done with that. I now want to move on to something like I want to be a truck driver. I want to go out and see Australia, so I'm going to hit the open road, drive a truck. Okay, I'm sick of being away from my family, so now let's get something more local. So now I've become the taxi driver that drives around at night so that I can be with my family during the day. I think you go through, and that's just by the time you're in your early 40s and you're doing something else.
Well, yeah, my dad, he's had so many different career changes, but I'd say he's like mid-40s at the moment. 5 years ago, he started a business. At the age of 40, and this was just after an IT career, you know. It's kind of interesting how these things can happen. My mum just spent 5 years studying education and couldn't find a job because they tend to hire younger people for those sorts of jobs.
Yeah.
Now she works with the police and she loves it. So
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah.
an interesting
Well,
turnabout.
it's kind of cool. That you can
Works with the police in what sense?
So she's not, she doesn't wear the uniform or anything, but she's in the office and she relays all the information from the drug boost buzz tests over the weekend. So it's 4 days a week and she's just talking with all the police officers and getting stats and sending blood and breathos off to
Oh, wow.
hospitals and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh,
It's
wow.
Yeah.
kind of intense, but I think she enjoys it because
Yeah.
everyone loves a bit of change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's that sort of thing of like I've sort of been finding this over like the last however many years, 10 or so, I suppose, that like sort of building up multiple skill sets, even if you're not necessarily doing it like consciously or for the sake of doing it, like you might find, you work in one job for however long it is, say 5 or 6 years, and there isn't really any further you can go within that same job or even within the same field, but like there's always sort of carryover skills that can then sort of help you in sometimes in a completely different field.
That's interesting, yeah.
Even with producing, I was having a chat to someone yesterday. She said, one of my best friends, she works in PR. And PR is not something I've really thought about because from a young age, I've always just been like, I'm going to do the media. And I guess it's sort of similar, but different. And I said, what does that involve? And it actually sounded very interesting. And I think even though you wouldn't be doing the same work as you would be if you were producing a community television program,
Yeah.
You can kind of relate to different aspects like the time management and kind of reaching goals, fast like timelines and stuff. I just thought it was so interesting. And then I thought there's so many different jobs out there that probably do feature that, and that's what like 50% of this country are probably doing in their jobs. It's just different variations, which is kind of weird. I think that's technology though.
I think a lot has changed with PR and everything in the last. I mean, I think the whole world in internet relations and everything's changed in the last 10 years. You think, okay, the internet's come up, Hotmail's come up, MSN's come up, it hasn't gotten any bigger. Then now you've got Facebook, YouTube, and it's gone to the next level. It's like, what's going to happen in the next 5 years, because it's got to be different again.
There's always that chance that say PR might lead to producing or producing might lead back to PR in the sense that so you might be sort of producing say a few short films and then like sort of thinking, okay, like how do I market these? And so you start trying to work out the marketing stuff for yourself, and then all of a sudden you've done a year later you've sort of built up these sort of skills on the side that's part of the producing work that you didn't even really realize you were doing, and all of a sudden, hang on a tick, you found you've got an aptitude for this, or you're having a lot of fun doing it, and these are all PR skills. So let's move on to the next sort of.
I think you find out along the way, and you decide, okay, I've done these skills. I like this. I thought I wanted to follow this path, but I didn't quite like it. But I'm liking more of this path, so I might end up turning more towards this path. And some people are just that mentally determined; they just go on one path no matter what.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't think there's anything wrong with either options. Like, there's nothing wrong with sticking to something and becoming amazing at it, or swapping around a little bit. I guess everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I think it's also trusting your instinct as well, because I think, one thing I'm a major fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I always like to impersonate him, and I like to play with my muscles. But anyway, back to the point. He has six rules to success, and one is trust yourself. So, you got to trust yourself and your feelings and everything else, and just do it, Don't worry about what other people are thinking, because one of the rules is even ignore the naysayers. Break the rules, not the law, but break the rules. Work your butt off, give back. They're all like great principles to lead to a great success. And trusting yourself. Sometimes you trust yourself and go, okay, I'm not the kind of guy who sticks it out and wants to go for a big goal like making a TV show or something, but I'm someone who likes to do a bit of this and a bit of that. So let's venture into that. And I trust myself that I know I can make it happen because of my past history, and I know I can go beyond this.
Well, I think also like one of the dangers of sort of the old model of seeing things like the single career track sort of thing is that there's this tendency to sort of like like you sort of have these one or two people who are sort of the best at that one thing.
Yeah.
And you sort of need to be the best at that one thing or you think you need to be the best at that one thing in order to really sort of be successful. Whereas it's more like, well, people are sort of combinations of different skills and and needs and desires and dreams and all that sort of stuff. And like I think the real question to ask isn't so much, okay, what am I the best at? It's more like, what do all these things put me alone in a unique position to do? Which is sort of how people become the best at whatever they do anyway, because they're sort of like because they found the right combination.
Because I think a lot of people are like, well, I need the
right.
best of everything to make the best product, but really what is, I need to make, how can I make the best of this situation that I'm in? Because that's how the best people come out. It's not trying to find the best, not the the best equipment, the best stuff, but it's making the best of the opportunity you've got right in front of you right now. Is how you become the best in the field, because you're dealing with it as you go along and you're learning to have the best attitude along the way.
And to be honest, I think from what I've noticed, like I know I'm still really young, but I think if people are looking, you need to look at the big picture and you need to have big time goals, but you can't have this mindset that I know a lot of people do have. I need to be the best before I can be happy. What you need to do, from what I've noticed, is just set little goals like every single week and work towards them. And that way you will eventually come to that big goal, or you can adjust that goal because you've learned.
I think a lot of people also have their life mapped out, like they've got their life mapped up to retirement age. And I find I get in that trap of, okay, I'm going to get, in 1 year I want to do a community TV show, 2 years I want to be on ABC, 3 years I want to be in America producing shows. But you find that you're going to get, if you plan your life that way, you're going to get very disappointed very quick. But if you, okay, I want to do a TV show eventually and do this, and you just make the best of the journey, Because the most successful people make the most of the journey, because it's not about reaching the top, it's making the most of the journey, because then you go on to the next journey. Because as soon as you're at that top point, as soon as the journey is over, you're entering the next journey.
We've been talking a lot in analogies here, but like a sort of that thing of like, rather than having like a specific destination in mind, it's sort of that thing of like, okay, like what's the where's the next opportunity to grow outwards?
I think it's very important just to kind of rationally know what you can and what you can't do, and work with that. You need to have a couple of years ahead. I wouldn't say 10 years, maybe a few years. This is what I would like to go towards. This is what I can't change. This is what I can change. And then you can't really go wrong with that, You're just being practical and you're working towards what you want.
That's it. And I think you team up with the people who, all right, you might be a strong producer, but you're weak at directing, you're weak at writing. But you meet a writer who's willing to jump in because their weak spot is where your strength is. And you find that, especially if you're patient and everything, you're going to find you have the perfect balance. It's like the yin yang, opposites attract. And you get the opposites that just make a TV show work. Because you can't have a million people who are talented at writing. Otherwise, your show's not going to go anywhere, because you got written projects, but you haven't got the camera guy, the producer to make it all happen.
I guess all you need is just a matching end goal and just the will to understand everyone else's different needs, and then you'll be fine. And
also, I think along the way, be patient of the journey, because it's going to go in places that you don't expect.
Just for the sake of like a little bit of a curveball, I suppose, in the conversation, like, okay, so like we've all sort of reached this conclusion that it's like, okay, sort of like taking advantage of the next opportunity and and where we're placed to get that from. But say like before we all realized this, like we all sort of had plans when we were young of like where we wanted to be when we grew up and all that sort of stuff. Like what's say what are your or what were your sort of like dream positions out of that? Like,
oh, I'll let you go first.
Well, let me think. If I go back to high school, originally it was meant to be like a crime scene investigator watching CSI. I wanted to become a forensic scientist. I wasn't that smart at science or anything. I failed year 12, to be honest, so didn't quite work out. So I became a worker, and then I analysed who I truly was, and I guess becoming a born-again Christian, everything made me think again, and then going along these crazy get-rich-quick schemes made me think, and then I discovered, and I had a question thrown at me that made me answer it. If I had all the money in the world, all the resources of the world, what would I do? And I thought, I want to make people laugh. So that led me down the road of stand-up comedy, and I met the right guy, And then it made me go, oh, I want to make a sitcom. You know, I'm always in front of TV watching Seinfeld, Frasier, Cheers, Scrubs, Simpsons, and I want to make that. I want to make that kind of show, make it about crazy life experiences and get all these writers together, have create these wacky stories and have the actors act these wacky stories out in real life.
Well, you've said a few times that you sort of your main aim with that sort of stuff is making people laugh, which is great. But I suppose the question I have at the moment is like, you know, if you could be sort of in your sort of dream position.
I guess for me it'd be two roles. It'd be producer and actor.
Yeah.
So I'd
specifically what like style of content.
You mean like a so it'd be a sitcom, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be of a sitcom based on a situation in my life. So like maybe the first workplace out of high school, or in a situation where I'm trying to make comedy. I've got the wacky comedy writer, then you got the stressed out director, and then you got the actress who you'd like. Well, this is not real life, but this is a situation I've dreamed up recently, where you got the actress who you like, but you don't really want to like her because it might complicate things on set because you wanted to be on the set. And, it's basically like a modern Seinfeld, but instead of being comedy, it's still comedy. Instead of stand-up, it's filmmaking.
Yeah.
I guess that's my sort of dream analogy that I've got at the moment.
Yeah. And what about you? What's been your sort of dream position or dream project?
Dream project. And I was just thinking about like what's led me to think that way as well. I think for me, it's not so much about the project that I'd be creating, although I do have a tendency to prefer live produced work, studio-based stuff, although I'm kind of exploring like location stuff at the moment as well.
Yeah.
But I think for me, as long as, and it's been like this for years, as long as I'm not doing the same thing every single day, as long as I'm kind of having new experiences from a young age, like I guess everyone kind of prioritizes just being happy in life. And for me, I think the two things I need to be happy is just to be doing something that I'm passionate about and just change. And that's why when I was younger, I thought, hang on a second, like I can't personally go do an office job. I understand that people who do those jobs, like they must have something keeping them going, and that's like really great. But from a young age, I just thought I need to be doing something a little bit different. So as long as I'm kind of fulfilling that, then I'll be happy. And the project may change, but as long as I'm still kind of moving forward with myself, then that's my dream sort of position to be in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So producing sort of mainly live content.
Yeah, I prefer live, kind of factual, interview-based stuff like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if you could be sort of producing like your like the project that you sort of most admire in the world, sort of thing. Like, you want to produce things like.
Do you want to know the honest answer? I love Getaway. Postcards.
Why not? You get to travel around the world.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like that show, but hey, I'd like to be where she is right now.
Exactly. And my first ever dream job, aside from I want to be a pilot, was I want to be a Getaway host, but that's kind of shifted to producer. Yeah.
But still, I mean, if you get to be a producer that's travelling with the crew, I mean, you get to experience it as well. So
Although I'm not even 100% tied down to producer. Like, producing is something I'm so passionate about, but I would direct or I would operate a camera, whatever.
So it's more sort of that thing of like, not necessarily producing, but involvement.
Yeah, although I do kind of like the position of producing. Yeah.
I also find, you could be doing like Sunshine, not Sunshine, sorry, that's where I live, but, Sunrise, so they did they travelled the whole world in 5 days, so they went to 5 spots, so every day they're in a different spot. One spot they're in London, they're in Dubai, they're in the US, they went to Canada, around the world in 5 days.
5 days?
5 days. Like every day they're in a new location, like it was a real organised, it took several months for them to prepare this.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that it would. That's a good like I don't know, half year's worth of.
Yeah.
I just remembered I met someone who, you guys know Hamish and Andy.
Yeah.
You know how they did the Around the World.
Yeah.
Someone actually had to do that trip before them alone. Go to all the stops, just make sure all the places were legitimate and then he went with them again.
Okay, and then basically you made sure that everything was safe. Also,
Yeah.
you want to make sure you don't break any international laws that will get you locked up. Like,
Yeah.
I'm from Adelaide, and the Adelaide band is currently locked up in a foreign country for breaking one of their laws.
Do you know what that is?
I didn't quite read the article. Basically, they've broken a law trying to come back into Australia, and they've gotten themselves locked up, like a death metal band from Adelaide. And so you really got to be careful when you're traveling overseas because there's different laws. Like there's certain countries where you can't kiss in open public or you get locked up.
Would Singapore be one of those? I have a feeling Singapore would be one of those. Could
be. I don't know the exact country, but you've really got to observe laws when you go overseas. And I've got to be careful because next year I'm planning to go to Canada because my mum recently moved over there.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to go to Canada. My mum says there's big burst of big trucks. So I can imagine myself in a big truck doing a burnout, maybe doing a few illegal things, but then driving legally afterwards.
Although Canada, you probably don't need to worry about stuff like public order nearly as much as you would have to in somewhere like Singapore, where it's where it's illegal to chew gum in public.
Have any of you
I
guys
think if you
been
spit
to
out
Singapore?
gum, like if you do any form of littering, I think Japan has the littering law, where if you get caught littering, you get locked up.
I've been
that's
to
in Japan as well.
Singapore actually. Just a bit of an insight here. I didn't actually notice it to be that strict,
Okay.
but I feel like those are just the norms there.
Yeah. It's very much sort of a thing of like the public there are very like they take care of their city basically. They wouldn't be able to enforce those laws if like if the
Well, they could try. They won't go far with it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't actually be able to do it and make it effective if the people living there didn't agree with those laws. Like
you would not be able to enforce it in Australia, ever.
No, you wouldn't.
Because there'd be a whole bunch of bogans going, get stuffed.
Well, there was a few years ago, I remember they tried to bring in, I don't remember whether it was state or federal, I think it was like specifically in the like Melbourne CBD, where they tried to bring in like sort of anti-swearing laws.
I'm not a guy who swears in public, but I know you cannot block that. It will never go through.
Well, yeah, as in the rationale being that you could then fine people for swearing on the street, and I think the idea was that they would only be enforced if they were also sort of breaking the law in other ways and like swearing at officers or that sort of thing.
Also, very bad because we have a part of our brain that is like designated to the words that we shouldn't say, and that's why we say them.
Although it's not as stupid as a law in Adelaide that got introduced. Adelaide's redone their road laws, so because they've got cyclists on the road and everything the same as Melbourne. And if you see a cyclist running at 60 kilometres an hour, you've got to go 1.5 metres away from the cyclist, which means you've got to go into the right-hand lane. Truck drive. It's amazing there hasn't been a major accident in Adelaide yet. So basically, you've got to swerve 1.5 metres going into the next lane, even if it's oncoming traffic. You have to move to keep it in the law.
To be fair, that's actually what I do even here. Like if I don't feel like I've got like at least a metre or so, I don't even try to overtake unless I can either sort of go.
You still got to keep a safe distance between cyclists and all that, but 1.5 metres is a bit. I think, in my opinion, is a bit ridiculous.
Oh well, 1.5 metres by law is I don't know. I mean, because a lot of traffic laws and stuff, the main reason why they exist, it's not necessarily so that if anyone steps over that line, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's more like if something goes wrong because while someone is doing these things, then you done messed up, son. Like that kind of thing. It's a matter of like sometimes it's a matter of establishing who's at fault rather than necessarily creating.
But a lot of people do because they're taking that law literally. Like they're literally taking it literally where big trucks are swerving into the other lane. So it's not the. Wow. But anyway, let's get away from state politics and everything else. Let's get back into filming.
Well, I don't know. I mean, can you really like? I suppose in terms of narrative, you can't really separate the two things. Yeah. In the sense that
I guess as I'm talking about, this is stuff I could write comedy about. And interestingly enough, writing comedies just.
Well, I'm sure you can find some way to write comedy about the traffic laws of Adelaide.
At the moment, my mind's got something about, because we're talking about, we've got Christmas thing coming up in my church, and we're talking about actually having a pig, and they actually want to buy a live pig and then kill it and then serve it on, the day before. It's like, I wouldn't want to kill that pig because I think you get too emotionally attached to the pig. It's like, I don't want to kill it. And then you've got the meat there. It's like, I don't want to eat that meat now. I know the pig too well.
Someone's going to want to give it a name.
Is now a good time to say I don't eat meat?
I suppose it is, yeah. Well, now would be the perfect time to say that.
Yeah,
Like I was thinking of doing a video of, because my friend was telling me about how he's watching all these videos about how to, kill the animal to prepare it for food. And it's like, well, how about I make a video about how not to kill meat?
How not to, as in how to. Well, you could easily make a video of like, all these situations where like a butcher would say like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it, and then you just sort of give the pig a pat and walk away, like that sort of thing. Get a VO track over the top. In, I don't know, David Attenborough style.
As you're giving the final pat, do not have the electrical rod in your hand because otherwise you're electrocuting yourself.
Rather than actually like killing the pig, it just gives it a pat and it's like, give it some food. Yeah, nice pig. Okay, go on. Walk away now.
How you should really treat animals.
Yeah. This is how to not kill it. And it's just like, yep.
I don't want to kill the animal.
And then he uses the knife to like chop vegetables. Like
that's really appealing. Like, see who's happy now, everyone.
Okay, let's change the topic before we get too controversial here.
Yeah.
I can see myself saying something real stupid right now.
Well, I mean, I'm not a vegetarian myself. Like, I'm not specifically like. I'm supportive of people who want to do that by choice. Great, do that. But it's also sort of a thing of like. Well, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Well, I just think, from a vegetarian's perspective, I think some of them, especially vegans, are given such a bad name, and that's because they do preach it onto everyone. But I think a lot of vegetarians probably are just, like, I don't eat meat. I'm not going to complain about it. I'll explain it to you if you want me to.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up if I feel like it's necessary in the conversation. I've got friends who just go on about bacon, and I'm like, I don't eat it. But like, I do think I'm kind of the same with you. If people want to eat meat, that's fine.
Yeah. So it's like Christians. I'm a born-again Christian, as I've probably mentioned a few times. But they're the Christians that go out in the street and go, "You're going to hell because of this." Like, you will not ever see me do that. I don't believe people are going to hell. Your beliefs are your beliefs. It's none of my business. But then you've got those people in the street going, "You're going to hell."
Oh yeah, the only
apparently I'm going to hell too. And I'm a Christian.
Well, the only effect that really has, as in, all the research that's been done on that sort of behaviour just shows that it doesn't actually help the cause. It just turns people against it and polarizes them.
And I think it's the same thing with any form of thing, whether you're talking about vegetarian, Christianity, whatever is going on in the world or whatever you want to try and believe in. You got your beliefs, and people will ask you about it, and you go, "Oh, well, this is the reason why." But then there's people that just go over the line and go, "Well, I want to do this, and you're wrong, and I'm right."
Yeah.
But it's not like everyone's got their own different lifestyle.
That's actually an unhealthy mindset as well.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on the vegetarianism thing, I mean, in terms of the I'm not actually sure at this stage whether I stand by these arguments or not, but I have heard arguments against the whole sort of the ethical side of vegetarianism and veganism in the sense of it causes all this animal suffering and such.
Yeah.
On the grounds that harvesting vegetation tends to actually cause more animal deaths than farming animals does, in the sense that you'll have all these sort of mice and rats that are living off the crops who get sort of churned up in the harvesters, or birds sometimes as well. Not to mention insects. Depends on whether you count them or not. But just by sheer number, it's actually you could argue that vegetarianism or veganism actually almost does more harm to animals. And I don't I'm sort of saying I haven't done enough research to know whether I agree with that argument or not, but it is an argument that exists, and I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, I find that really interesting because I've heard a lot of different arguments on both sides and stuff, and a lot of the time I just can't be bothered explaining it because it's, I think a lot of vegetarians, it's not the idea, it's partially is the idea that, yes, an animal died for this, but it's more, I'm put off eating this because it's not appealing to me anymore, rather than these animals actually died. I mean, of course, that still comes into part. But I also think that I'm not sure if that argument is like even truthful, because crops, you can like grow new crops. I doubt that many birds would die from it. What about
not,
like
but-
deforestation and stuff?
Yeah,
as well, you know?
deforestation is
Yeah.
kind of the other big one, because like,
Yeah.
you know, clearing land to grow crops, clearing land to farm animals, like, okay, which one involves more deforestation or more like more sort of environmental problems, because both of them like require huge amounts of space. And I suppose like it's sort of a thing of like, well, you know, in the case of crops, like there's a lot of potential for sort of what's the word, like to like
Sustainability.
no, to like compact it into like a smaller space, like a smaller amount of space for like greater value, like with greenhousing and that sort of stuff, like greenhousing technology. Sorry, I'm losing myself here.
I lost you a long time ago, so
there's a lot more scope to sort of bring it down to less land costs than it is now than there is with animal farming, I think.
Yeah. I think water-wise, eating plants is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
And I'm totally cool with people like eating meat and stuff, but I guess there are a few health reasons that would make you choose vegetables over meat. And I'm not trying to like convert you guys, but I think like red meat just came out as like slightly cancerous. And I think that the protein in vegetables and stuff is actually better for you, although you do need more of it than the protein that you receive through meat.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I guess there are factors that would sway you one way, but I guess your other point, like your first point, like it does get you thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like again. I have no idea about the exact numbers, but like it's just so that thing of like a few fairly sort of strong academics that I know have sort of raised these points, not necessarily like to argue, oh, I'm going to eat meat forever now because this, but more just like this is more complicated than most people make out, like that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's always like good to have every single fact laid out when you're gonna make big decisions like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of decide like what metrics you're going to make those decisions along, like whether it's like, okay, you know, I like say, for example, I specifically value this type of animal suffering over this type of animal suffering, and that's fine. Yeah, just sort of like having all the information you need to actually make the decisions along the lines of your values.
And I guess every little fact that ever existed can be twisted either way.
Yeah, that's
true. So,
true.
you know, it's all controversial.
Yeah, statistics do tend to get misrepresented and misinterpreted a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, sort of gathered in very dubious ways sometimes. Yeah.
That was a heavy conversation.
that was very interesting. We've drifted from filming over to road rules, and then we've gone over to being a vegetarian. That is actually very interesting. I'm loving this conversation.
How did we get here? I think we were talking about comedy and your church.
I was talking about pig killing, and then the vegetarian thing came out. My bad. Look, we're not actually. I've convinced them not to actually get the pig. We're gonna buy the pig already killed. So. Don't worry, there's no emotional attachment.
It's sort of that thing of like if there's going to be a pig and it's going to die anyway, there isn't a huge amount of ethical difference as to whether like someone else is killing it or whether you guys are killing it. It's just a matter of like.
Well, it's not that we're going to send it to someone to kill it, but it's like, why would you want to pig it around? You know, that you're getting emotionally attached to, that you're feeding, looking after. I'd be like, because the pig senses a doom too. So you're looking at the pig's eyes and you're just like. I cannot eat you, and yet I'm sending you to your demise, your doom. But yet there's some people
that can be quite important though, but like because there are like obviously again it's that thing of sort of having all the information before you really make a decision, and it's like, well, you know, even if you can't necessarily do that, like perform the act yourself, like just sort of like knowing like how you actually feel when you when you look at when you look at an animal, like that can be really important information for you in terms of like like, okay, how am I going to treat these values? Like what am I going to even if you're not necessarily going to make the decision as to whether you're going to change to vegetarianism because of that or whatever. Like,
I don't think I would. I just wouldn't eat that particular meat. But then I guess you know, I'm the kind of guy who grew up not eating fruit or vegetables, and only as an adult now I'm starting to come to eat it slowly. And I guess I just love. I guess my reasoning is I like meat too much to not really.
Yeah. I'm a little bit the same as callous as it is.
Yeah. But I guess if I had health challenges, or I decide my health is very more important now, I probably would come to that. Go would I be or would I not be, or would I cut back a bit more and go to chicken or something? But that's let's get back into filming anyway.
We got back onto the vegetarianism thing. I mean, does that really matter though? I mean, because it's not as though we're not allowed to go off on total tangents, and I think it's kind of.
Well, we haven't had Jack come in and tell us off as of yet.
Yeah.
So
are we in trouble? Are we in trouble yet? Can we be in trouble? How do we get in trouble? Let's see how we can.
There are a lot of ways, but if we start listing them, and do we play the game by just doing random things till we have a producer come in and say, cut the cameras!
Well,
I mean, there's a few awkward things, but I'm keeping it in my head because I'm just... Only because there's a girl in the room. If it was just guys in the room, I think we would have tested every avenue possible.
I'm pretty sure we do have to keep the audience in mind a little bit.
Yes, okay, yep, because we don't want to warp people's lives from just watching a podcast.
Although
this is the last show of Jack, though, of Jack being producer. So we need to find one way to salute our producer.
Well, you're the one sort of taking over that role as of next week, aren't you?
We don't want everyone knowing that I'm now going to be the crazy producer that's going to get arrested by the end of the series.
Sorry, I've let the cat out of the bag now. I suppose. But are you still going to be producing from in front of the camera or from the?
Probably I'll be more behind the camera unless there was a show where there was no one around to be in front of the camera. Then I guess I'll have to be producing in front of the camera. Hi, I'm Justin Dalaya. Welcome to Provisionally Approved. Today we have a whole heap of people coming into the show as I'm texting them right now. So you get to talk to me for the next 30 minutes.
Casting problems.
I'm showing the real life of the pain, or the real pain of producers right on set.
Well, it comes back into the comedy thing a little bit, I think, because there's a Fry and Laurie sketch where he's I think it's Hugh Laurie sort of hosting a show, and it's just called "Welcome to Today I've Given the Wrong Directions Too," and
I'm loving it already.
And it just says to the camera, today I'm finding out that I've given the wrong directions to I don't know, it's a Jewish name, I can never remember it, and then the camera sort of zooms out and I see the couch and it's empty, and it's just like so how I. Oh. And it's just sort of that thing of you can use basically anything, from any part of the production process going wrong to.
I think, especially with, I don't know whether Hugh and Laurie had this situation happen to them and that's why they've done it, but I think that comes to me. If that situation's happened to me or someone's told me about a situation, it's like, okay, well, that's it. That's the script. That's what we're going to do because, it's just so awkward, so weird. And I think it's funny if we show it to people if the situation has happened because either people have laughed at the situation or, we think, oh, it could be funny. Let's see what people think of it.
Have you guys ever had any TV nightmares? Just things just went wrong. I've got one
TV
particular
experience.
story.
Share it with us, please.
It's just, this kind of reminded me of a time a few weeks ago on Off Feet. I feel like we've had a nice season. For me at least, I feel like I've learned a lot. But we had this one day where I had a really big band organised, and perhaps I was a little bit ambitious, but I didn't think that it would be necessary for us to get there early, although I did arrive early, but I couldn't get in early. So we were there on time, and things just went wrong. So we have this audio expert, Ed, but I hadn't contacted him to be like, oh, definitely come on time.
Is that the same Ed?
Yeah. But he was put on cameras anyway. So, I had these two people who on audio who were still learning, and it just took longer, and I'm not the best at audio either, so I guess I learnt from that, you know, allow more time for this kind of stuff. But it was 10 minutes before the show went to live, and we still hadn't done a sound check. And let me paint a picture for you. We were in these studios. We had 3 band members. One of them had a synth, a vocal mic that went through the synth, a little electronic drum kit, and a proper drum kit, and some guitar. Like, I don't know, somehow all of that was in a 3-person band, and it was all set up. And basically Offbeat is in 3 blocks. So how I'd laid out the show was kind of intro performance, package break, and then, without the package, and then just into a break, and then interview with that band, a package, and then a performance by another guy who was a slam poet. So he requires a handheld mic without a synth going through it. And basically, in the last little section, we had another package and his interview. So that was kind of how it was spaced out. But what we had to do was just start the show, intro it, package, a little throw between the next package because we were still sound checking. And then we had another little throw and then the break. And then we had 2 blocks left to do these 2 different performances and 2 different interviews without any packages.
Wow.
And sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. But, oh my God. So all we could do was have this band go, and then I told my director to get a really tight shot of the host. She was really good. She walked in, she threw to the next guy who was a slam poet. I sent Ed in because I was like, hang on a second, that handheld mic that the singer is using has a synth over it. He can't do slam poetry with a synth over his voice. It was so scary. And in the corner, you could see his hands, like adjusting the XLRs, like in the corner of the shot. It was horrifying. And I had my teacher walk through that day, and I was like, out of all the days that this could have happened, but everyone was so switched on, and I was so proud of them all. But then he did his performance, and for some lucky reason, the handheld mic was just like back to normal. And then we had 1 block left, so I just had to put the slam poet in with the big band's interview, and they just spoke and compared their different art forms.
Wow.
And because like it was so rushed, we just pulled up a bunch of chairs in front of all the band equipment, and he was like half lit, like he was kind of off the side. And I just thought, this is so bad, this is so scary. But I guess that's the kind of thing that you could just joke about.
It's a thrill of live television, I guess. And also, I've discovered when things go wrong, because as a producer, you're a problem solver. You're always solving a million problems at once. And I think when you have a lot of problems come on, sometimes those problems are necessary because your production comes out better through the problems.
Well,
like sometimes, not all the time, but in that situation, would you think that it came out better because of what happened?
I think perhaps not that week, but I think future weeks will come out better because I will never ever book an expansive band and not read their tech specs. I didn't place an importance on that, so now I know. And I will also, when it comes to audio, make sure I've got like a few people who really know what's up and like definitely
you're switched on, able to work with it.
And I guess like as a crew, we really grew from that experience.
Well, it came together in the end because you didn't have to get there or anything. You had to having a conversation.
Like something went out.
It's something a bit different.
And we filled the time.
Well, often those kind of experiences are sort of the one, it sort of takes those experiences sometimes to sort of really sort of bring a crew together. Because it's like, you know, if everybody's sort of invested in, you know, sort of making it a good production, and you sort of get through that like as a group, and you know, it's like, okay, you know, high fives all around, you know, you're sort of sharing that relief together.
Crew drinks were a lot better than usual that night.
I can imagine.
I think it brings the crew closer together, and you know, the crew knows what happens when there's stressful moments. Okay, I know you need to go here. This person will react in this way, so I'll know you're carrying act. You know, with these things, and we know you know how to work together better next time, and go, okay, this didn't go right this time, and next time let's try and do. Because until those high pressure moments, you don't know what your capabilities are, how you handle things in high stress.
And it's also good to have a backup plan as well. I never thought about what my backup plan would be, but I was lucky my host said, you know, this is how it's going to have to work. And now I kind of have that as well if it ever did happen again, you know. I
think as a producer, you always got to have plan B in mind, because plan A, well, my experience never usually works out.
Well, nine times out of 10, plan A just sort of like even if it doesn't fall apart straight away, it's gonna often like it sort of slowly erodes over time a little
Yeah.
bit, or sometimes you find out on the first day that my plan A is definitely not going to happen. Okay,
Yeah.
what's next?
Yeah.
But like from my experience, the like a lot of the strongest productions are the ones with the best sort of backup plans.
Yep.
Like in terms of like, okay, when you're sort of planning out the production, okay, if this and this don't work, how are we going to manage that? Okay, we've got this other plan
Yep.
to fall back on. And then, hopefully you'll have another fallback after that if
So
something
me,
there falls apart.
this is where I've got to start thinking plan B and plan C, because I think usually most of the time it's like, okay, the thing's not going to work out, let's go improv.
Yeah. Having the ability to fall back on improv is a huge boon, I think.
I think it's the very last resort. You sort of want to have all your
Yeah.
other planned stuff, and then last resort, oh crap, I've got nothing to do. Just go out there and do something.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to plan to use like the furthest
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
sort of backup plans available. Like, yeah, you want to like try to sort of get it up to this
That's
level.
it, yeah.
And then yeah.
See, I've
sort of
never done
have-
live production, so I've never had to really think of that before. So that's a interesting experience.
It was really interesting, and I mean, I was a bit disappointed that things don't always work out, but that's just reality,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lucky it's like community TV and it is a training show,
Yeah.
and I guess that means everyone's learning, including myself.
Well, my actual like first experience of live TV was on third season of Live on Bowen, and we had like a couple of weeks worth of tech and cast rehearsal and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We'd had a couple of weeks to sort of put together the field segments and stuff, which was sort of how I learned, how I started learning the ropes a little bit.
Yeah.
And then on the night of the first episode, we were sort of doing a couple of little VT bits on the bits and pieces on the days, such as like the band stuff. We'd recorded the musician already,
Yeah.
but they needed to sort of get the credits on top of that.
Yep.
And then like basically they'd only sort of work this out on a night or something, or they'd only recorded it earlier that night, so they had to rush that out, and I was the one
Yeah.
that needed to do that. And so after I had that sort of sorted out fairly early, but then we worked out after the show had started, hang on a tick, the rendered file isn't actually ingesting. And I'd been told to render it in this particular way, and it took us about half an hour to sort of diagnose that and work out what was going on.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, it's halfway through the show, so we have to re-render it in this other file setting.
Man.
The first one didn't work again.
Yeah.
Had to re-diagnose that, upload the next one.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where we were ingesting the credits file like right at the point where we had to actually play the credits file. So it was in the middle of ingesting while it was being broadcast. And within about a minute, like the buffer sort of ran
Yeah.
out and it started sort of seizing up. So, so Channel 31 had to like, do the cut to black into the next program thing, like
Oh,
for that,
wow, yeah.
for that last minute of the
Yeah.
song. And of course,
Yeah.
they re-edited that for the upload, but
Yeah.
it was sort of that thing of
Yeah.
that whole sort of like during the live show, it was like, quick, we got to fix this problem,
Yeah,
quick,
yeah.
smart, and then it sort of came right down to the wire.
Sometimes things are just out of your control.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit. But yeah, I think that's all we've actually got time for. So thanks for watching or listening in, depending on what medium you're watching us on. This has been Provisionally Approved. I'm Mike Gorrie.
I'm Grace Cunningham.
I'm Justin Dalaya, and trust me, I will be back. Count on it.
See you next week.